About a month into this year's session at the State House, and while there's no budget to debate this year, there are a number of bills that will affect Hoosiers. Our Ethan Sandwise has been covering one bill that would redefine which Indiana wetlands deserve protection.
Yeah, Joe. Representatives from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management and the Indiana Builders Association say the bill is a compromise meant to prevent permitting delays. Environmental groups worry it does more than clarify existing law. Indiana's wetlands are grouped into 3 tiers by the state. Only the highest-ranked Class 3 wetlands receive full protections. Class 2 wetlands have fewer protections, and Class 1 has none. The system went into effect in 2022.
During that 2-year period, we lost at least 261 million gallons of water storage from the state because of the wetlands that were destroyed during that time.
A Supreme Court ruling last summer in Sackett versus EPA removed most federal protections for isolated wetlands, meaning only Indiana's Class 3 habitats are protected by law. But House Bill 1383 changes what's covered in Class 3.
The problem is that in the process of clarifying, they're also shrinking the number of Class 3 wetlands, and that shrinks the number of wetlands that get protected.
Last month, the bill passed House and Senate committees on party-line votes. Builders, environmental consultants, and IDEM staff helped draft the legislation last summer.
I want to begin by crediting the commissioner at the Department of Environmental Management. Those aren't words that I woke up in January ever believing that I'd say.
Developers say the changes would clarify existing laws with minimal impact to protected ecosystems.
It was putting lower quality wetlands into a classification that they shouldn't be in scientifically. And so when that happens, the builders are like, this is untenable to us.
Our estimates from our national association show that about 24% of the cost of a house is directly tied to regulations at the local, state, and federal level. And so I like to say that's no sticks and that's no bricks, but that's just pure government red tape.
Many environmentalists say clarifications will be necessary, but this bill goes beyond that. 2 IDEM water regulators told the Indy Star that experts in the wetlands program were not consulted.
Unfortunately, the negotiation process for this bill was between the agency and the Builders Association. They did not invite in any of the conservation or environmental organizations to that process.
The bill includes protections for ecosystems that are undisturbed or minimally disturbed by human activity. That leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
This is Indiana. The chances of you running into one of those wetland types that has not already been, what's the wording, more than minimally impacted is pretty slim.
Representative Sue Arrington tried to introduce an amendment that she said would clarify without removing protections, what the Indiana Builders Association says it wants.
There is no other state in the country that uses this system. So the alternative would have done away with the classification system.
Committee Chair Alan Morrison, who authored the bill, decided against taking testimony on her amendment. The Indiana Builders Association suggests the current bill is as far as it's willing to go.
If my membership had their druthers, they'd look to the state of North Carolina. North Carolina just passed a bill late summer, early fall, that eliminated their state's isolated wetlands program.
Could represent that it's weakening the wetland laws, but I think the important thing to know is that without these clarifications and modifications, the other option is they just pull it all.
The bill went to a Senate committee where 21 people gave testimony, most of them against 1383.
I just like those who support this bill to tell me why my job isn't important. So far, I haven't heard any argument that says why HB 1383 is good for Indiana.
It still passed as written, 7-2. The bill now heads to the Senate, where lawmakers may reintroduce their amendments. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Ethan Sandwise.
So Ethan joins us for a little bit more. So critics of this bill say that it opens some of Indiana's remaining wetlands for development. Some of those are rare ecosystems. Some of these, of course, house endangered species, but not all of them. So are there any compelling reasons for these protections?
Sure. So Even wetlands that aren't as beautiful and don't have biodiversity, which of course is one of the most eye-catching aspects of wetlands, still provide a lot of benefits. So, for example, they contain hundreds of thousands of gallons of water per acre. That water is filtered and cleaned by the wetlands, it is held during droughts, and it also diverts storm water away. A good example of this would be in the town of Tipton, Indiana, which is just downstream from the Cicero Creek watershed. Now, that watershed was 95% drained and developed, and since then there's been several devastating floods, notably in 2013, that have affected the town of Tipton. Now that town is trying to restore some of those wetlands to prevent future flooding.
So voting on this bill has been manual. You have Republicans for, Democrats against. So is wetlands conservation a partisan issue?
Not entirely. So there's actually one Republican state senator, Sue Glick, who introduced another bill, Senate Bill 246, this session, that will provide a tax break for property owners who have wetlands on their property.
Here's something you can do to reduce your overall tax bill, but doing something good for the environment, something beautiful for the environment, and something that aids everybody concerned.
So both Democrats and Republicans are voting for this bill. Environmental groups say it's a good deal, but of course, incentives aren't enough by themselves. There also have to be regulations that go with them to be effective.
All right, Ethan, thank you very much.